Okay, so we're going to look for the hilus, which is this area right here. And then we're going to go right here where the renal pelvis is located. And then right here, this big area is the major calyx. This is the opening of the major calyx. And then as we make our way here, this is one of the minor calyx. And then we're going to make our way up to where a interlobar artery is right here. These are interlobar arteries. And then as we go up here, we have the arcuate arteries. And then we're going to make our way back to where the hilus was. And this will be labeled as the ureter. And then we're going to make our way back up here to where the renal artery and vein are. Renal artery, renal vein. And then on that same note, we're going to go up here where we have the arcuate artery in red, and the arcuate vein in blue. And then as we go up here, these white dots are the renal corpuscles. Okay, moving on to the zoomed in version of this section of a pyramid. We are looking at the renal cortex in this area. And then as we go down here, this would be the medulla. And then this thin layer up top right here is the renal capsule. Next we have the white little balls that are going to be known as the renal corpuscles, and inside of them are the glomerulus. Now we are going to find the afferent arterioles coming off of the interlobar artery. So this is the interlobar artery, and the arteries coming off of them into the corpuscle will be the afferent arterioles. Next, we are going to go for the proximal convoluted tube, which would be this tube, because it's more proximal to the medulla. Next, we're going to find the descending thick limb of the loop of Henle, which would be this thick limb coming off of the proximal convoluted tube, and it's a lot thinner, or it's a lot smaller and shorter than the ascending thick limb of the loop of Henle. Next, we're going to have the descending and ascending thin limb of the loop of Henle. And then as we make our way down here, we will find the renal papillae. Next, we're going to find where the other interlobar artery is, and it's going to be this one. This is also an interlobar artery. Next, we're going to find where the vasa recta is, and it's right here, this network of artery and vein, right here, vasa recta. Next, we're going to look for the arcuate artery and vein, and it's going to be the arcuate artery and vein. Notice how it's kind of arcing over. We're going to look over here and kind of reference, yes, this is where the arcuate artery and vein would be. Then we're going to look for the peritubular capillaries, which are going to be found in the renal cortex. So we're going to go up here into this network of capillaries. Next, we're going to be looking into a zoomed in version of a renal corpuscle and the glomerulus inside of it. So we're going to look at the distal convoluted tube. So we're going to look at it as if we're on this side as well. So this would be the distal convoluted tube, and the lining of the distal convoluted tube would be macula densa, which are these cells. Next, we're going to look for the efferent arteriole, which is this arteriole right here. And the way you can easily identify it on this is it's going to be fake. You're going to look for the distal convoluted tube and how it has the macula densa. And then it will, on this slide, you're going to see it as if it would make the letter E. So efferent arteriole. Then we have the glomerulus, which is this network right here. Then we have the space in between it, which will be known as the capsular space of the Bowman's capsule or the renal corpuscle. Then we're going to look for the endothelial cells of the glomerulus, and we're going to zoom in a little bit to kind of see where the cells would be. The cells. Now we're going to move down to where the beginning of the proximal convoluted tube is. So this is the beginning of the proximal convoluted tube. And then on the inside, we have a brush border of epithelial cells. And we're going to move on to where we have our podocytes of the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule, which would be these cells right here. Now we're going to look at the parietal layer of the Bowman's capsule, which would be this, and it's composed of epithelial cells in the parietal layer. And then we're going to go all the way back up to the afferent arteriole. Remember that the afferent arteriole feeds this network, feeds the glomerulus. Afferent will feed it. And so we're going to look closely into where we have the afferent arteriole and see that juxtaglomerular cells line the afferent arteriole. Now we're going to take a little closer look onto the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule, which is the whitish looking layer part of the glomerulus. And we're going to look at the pedicels of the podocytes, which are these light bluish dots. And then, the pedicels are the squiggly line looking, the squiggly lines. Look. And then the nuclei will be these light blue dots